Thank you very much. Dr. Nolan, I personally want to thank you for the opportunity to have this experience. It occurred to me that as I looked around the room, in our lives, I think that it's very important when we've got one mentor to guide us along the way. But I have been very blessed to have 5 individuals that so have framed my thinking about education. And this morning, I actually am in the room with all 5 of those individuals. Now, I share that with you because the next time I am probably as anxious about the outcome of my performance, I will be standing in front of the pearly gates. So bear with me a little bit in the process. Our committee was informed by that initial survey that you did. And so using those thoughts, we actually began to think about the needs, the goals, the roles, the power structure, the symbols of this campus, and began to formulate then 5 subgroups that gave us our 5 visioning statements. The first of those really deals with the lay of the land, because in any organization, if you're going to consider what it is you're going to do, you have to first figure out where you're going to do it. And we know that geography can be both limiting and it also can expand our perspectives. And we also at this time know that constituents are very interested in accessibility, and they're very interested in customization. So what our committee envisioned as a big idea is, what if we look at ETSU as an education corridor, a gateway, if you will, that doesn't have geographic limits, that we need to consider what it is our constituents want and then figure out how it is we're going to give that to them. So when we think about an education corridor, let's think about ETSU, because we think that one of the things that has occurred for us is that we probably have limited ourselves, because we even limit our vocabulary about how we think about ETSU. When we talk about a home campus, we think in terms of the buildings across the street that border on University Parkway and State of Franklin. Our committee talked about the fact that when we speak of our campus, we should think about Greene County, Unicoi County, Carter County, Sullivan County, Washington County, that we don't think about the buildings here, but we think about this immediate region, and that becomes the campus of ETSU. So that when we speak of our campus, we are thinking about how we can immerse ourselves in all of those counties, and that people there understand what we're doing, and that we understand what the people of those counties need us to be doing. When we talk about the core of ETSU, and I was as guilty of this as everyone else, we talked about Washington County and Sullivan County. That's the core of ETSU. The core of East Tennessee State University is the 15 counties of Northeast Tennessee at a minimum, and it is the border counties of Southwest Virginia and Western North Carolina, because they believe we are their home institution. So when we speak of a core, how do we serve that region effectively? And finally, we said we also have a playground. And that playground has been vastly expanding over the last few years. In the nation and across internationally, ETSU is becoming more and more recognized. We need to provide our faculty the support they need to build those world-class classes, so that when they provide a MOOC, that it is the best possible one they can provide. We need to be walking down the street in Beijing, China, or in Edinburgh, Scotland, and see a stranger coming toward us in an ETSU t-shirt. I had both of those experiences. The second vision statement is that we need to look at the university, and the university in our perspective is the student. We need to realize that we have got to eliminate every barrier conceivable to keep our students from fully engaging in their educational experience. That is social, cultural, and academics, so that when they leave here as an alumna, they are going to be sending other students back to ETSU because they believe this is the institution of choice. But when you are making your decisions about how to do that, you need to remember that the face of the ETSU student has dramatically changed, as it has for all college students. We can't continue to think of them just as those traditional experiencers, the ones that come to the buildings across the street, that live here or commute here every day. We also have a large number of students who are online savers, or I refer to them as the Cyber Monday students. They're the ones who want to do it on their time, in their way, from their home, in their pajamas, whatever the case might be, but they want it at their convenience. And we also have the students who are the academic shoppers. They're the ones coming to us from around the world. They're that student coming from Iran next fall to ETSU just because we have the only bluegrass and old-time country music program in the world. Those students are also very important and valuable to us. But what you have to realize as we're making decisions about this is that each of these groups have social, cultural, and academic needs that are distinct. One size does not fit all, but we have a responsibility to review all of those. And then we had a constituent connection. This is to become a gateway to the varied outreach activities and cultural experiences. And yes, you certainly have our vote for a world-class, I'm going to add those words, Fine and Performing Arts Center. But we also think that ETSU needs to look at science education and upping that a notch too. With our Natural History Museum, that also needs to become world-class and a world focus. We also know that we need to continue to work on valuing our alumni, not just engaging them, but valuing them in this process too. And that's also our faculty and staff, that's our retired faculty and staff. You're even going to see a recommendation in our report about a Del Webb type community that encircles this campus so that this is where we would live as alumni and retirees, and we would engage fully and effectively in the life of this campus. We also looked at service, and we believe that ETSU should be known for quality service. We think that we need to re-envision the processes and spaces for efficiently and conveniently serving the individuals we do serve. We need to be an institution where every employee is an official ambassador of ETSU. That means returning to professional dress. That means wearing with pride our name with a name tag. Those types of things that show that we can answer the questions and we believe in this university. I want you to think about, from your perspective, what it's like to come onto our campus for the very first time. It's been a while since you've done that, but you are a father bringing your teenage daughter to ETSU to consider being a student at ETSU. You look first for a welcome center. Sorry, there isn't one. So you begin to think, well, where do I park my car? But the only sign that greets you as you come into our campus is a sign that says, violators will be, or is prohibited to park on our campus without a permit. So the first sign you see is a negative sign. We are recommending that we have a way for individuals to be greeted to our campus as the gateway to our campus. So we don't want our internal controls to guide our external perceptions. And of course, we looked at marketing, communication, and branding. We think that we need a clear message, that a story that is consistently and visually recognizable about our campus. We want to re-examine limiting vocabulary. Words such as regional, state, east, all of those things are limiting in scope, even if it means re-examining the very name of the institution. We support and expect that marketing is the responsibility of all faculty and staff, not just the responsibility of enrollment services. I said it for 25 years. I just said it one more time. And in summary, we want to be so good at what we do that we are recognized internationally for the way we communicate with technology, in writing, and verbally. That it is focused, it is accurate, it is timely, and it is sharp. You have in your report the guiding philosophy that we used for our report, but I will say to you, just in brief, what if What if we agreed that our true purpose is to lead efforts to transform the lives of constituents through education? We embrace the idea that every person needs to aspire to more than a high school education, and that ETSU's purpose is to provide every learning opportunity conceivable to make that happen. Now, because I'm an ETSU graduate, and I know that 10% of you will not remember 10% of what I said 10 minutes after I'm gone, I'm going to give you a quiz. And the quiz is, what are the 3 things we want you to remember about what I just said? Well, in the interest of time and because I'm a control freak, I'm just going to tell you. First of all, we want you to bring our campus to the world, and we want you to bring the world to our campus. We want to develop a bold and consistent message defining who we are, and we want to understand that everything we do, absolutely everything we do, should be about helping our students to have the biggest dreams they can possibly have and make them come true. Questions?
Nancy?
Yes.
I have one question. With a greater influx of international students coming to the U.S. to study, particularly from the Asian countries, have we intensified our recruiting efforts to bring more international students to ETSU?
I would love to answer that question, but Bert Bach would take it away from me in a heartbeat.
We have about 400 students, a little over 40. There's been a significant increase in recent years. We've had an increase in, as you observe, a large percentage of our students are Asian students, though that's changed over time, and it's a fairly there's a fairly cosmopolitan mix. We're also engaging in some current very specific activity aimed at that. We're an ELS center. We contract with an external body that is here and is helping us with the recruiting of students and providing some of the language acquisition skills for those students. But it is a major tactical objective of our enrollment services.
Good.
Other questions? Culture and outreach.
In regard to marketing, did your committee discuss tying in with athletics, having a unified university marketing?
Yes, and in the full report, there is quite a bit of detail about the concept of having, raising that level of how we structure the marketing operation of the campus so that it is more centralized in its focus, that it is more, that it more fairly distributes so that all programs can be well represented in how the university is marketed, that it can be consistency in the marketing, and very definitely how it ties to all areas, including athletics.
Dr. Dishner, to what extent did you talk about consistency of marketing? I know one of the things we've discussed at length is confusion within the market of our brand. Yes. Could you talk a little bit about those dynamics in the committee?
Yes, and this is really an expansion too of the question that Ken asked earlier, but the idea that at this point the message that is projected about ETSU is so varied that it is very difficult to ever pick up a document or a publication or information that you would be able to address and recognize as being a document from ETSU. We had an assortment of publications, a bag of publications, none of which bore any resemblance to each other. And so we talked about that consistency of message, Dr. Nolan, the re-envisioning of how we use our logo and what kind of logo is used, how that can be more representative of the campus. So there is a recommendation about looking at all of those fundamentally. But the consistency throughout campus was an overriding theme of our work.
I'm looking.
Yes, sir.
None of your constituents?
Yes.
I don't believe I see parents.
And we said, and of course that was not a full group. That's why I didn't even use that particular slide, because I thought that it would be difficult to list all of the constituents. But yes, you are correct. Parents, in my opinion, parents usually are primarily with their traditional age students, as I believe Sally will back me up on this. But parents are traditionally one of the most important factors, if not the most important factor, in the student identifying this campus as their college of choice. So yes.
Parents council?
Parents council.
We do not at this point. We're expanding our parents association programs and moving in that direction.
Very, very effective.
Yeah.
For example, when we select students in Connecticut, there will be a parents host that will have a reception for all the students there.
We've talked to your folks and we're getting some good ideas. Yeah.
Of course, you have to have football so that you can have parents
Well, let's see, we made it without
I'm all for global campus to the world, etc. There's a couple of words I have not heard today, though, and I have not seen in any of the recommendations, and that were a central part of the work 25 years ago. Those words were high school, elementary, secondary schools, school districts, and we come close with this, lead the way in science education and outreach, because clearly our Center for Math and Science Education and Outreach. But there seems to be, I guess I'll say troubled, that we're not explicitly talking about schools, high schools, school districts in our 18 county, whatever area, as we talk about the world.
And duly noted. I know that a comment was made earlier. We didn't look back, we looked forward. There's always some troubling aspects of that. Being a teacher education graduate of East Tennessee State University, I know that is the bread and butter that really started this institution. As we heard this morning, the comments about a passing of a very special alumni of this institution. She was part of that initial teacher education program, and we have been major players in sending teachers into this region, and of course and training and educating. And I was a professor in our Department of Educational Leadership and taught in our doctoral program that was sending our school leaders out into the community as principalship prepared people. We've been doing that here for decades. But we don't need to lose sight of the fact that that is a primary role of ours.
Nancy, as you think about the community, and as you're talking about sort of the connectivity, as we think about branding and marketing sort of components here, what's the perception in the community? What's the perception of the university in the community? And how predisposed is the community for the kinds of activity that you're proposing in terms of these higher levels of engagement?
I will defer to anyone else who is on the campus at this time if you would like to respond to that question, because I'm going to be responding from history, not from the present. Perhaps Wilsey or others who would like to respond to that?
I'd just like to say, too, we have a consultant who's doing research-based messaging right now and asking what are those perceptions, what does it mean when someone says ETSU. On top of that, Dr. Nolan and Dr. Kirkwood, Dr. Bach have been with employee roundtables asking employers, what does it mean if someone has an ETSU degree, what are the feelings? And so there's a lot of research, I think, in identifying right now what that perception is, a very methodical, research-based process.
We traditionally had some of the resource data available when we were looking at expanding online education. Dr. King's group did market research on the presence of ETSU and the depth of ETSU from a messaging perspective across the community. So we're trying to take the data that we already have that's historic and then build from it with the consultants who are looking at market presence and looking particularly at branding. The employer roundtables that Jeremy referenced, we've held 2. We have a couple more that are on the table, just getting a sense of that message within the community. One of the themes is a lack of clarity around the message.
Nancy, as you all look at removing the geographic constraints, I would push the group to really pursue that, especially as it relates to out-of-state tuition and those things. But as you look at branding and what you say about ETSU, I still think education corridor is still limited. To me, corridor is, you think of a narrow, I think that there has to be, for me, some better terminology than that.
I wonder if there was any discussion in the group of what your thoughts are about deepening ETSU students' identification with the university, so that they feel more strongly that they are, I'll be really corny, Buccaneers while they're here, and then obviously long after. I've met any number of ETSU alums who absolutely love this institution. It's just wonderful to be around them and hear them talk about ETSU. I wonder what your thoughts might be about how we can engender more of that feeling among our currently enrolled students.
Well, first of all, Bill, in response to your Buccaneer statement, you actually have a recommendation from our committee that we change our mascot and we become the Red Pandas. I think that we decided that that was much more in keeping with something that we can relate to our campus now. Bill, I think that your question is a deeply philosophical one, and one that we've, have been trying to address for many years. And I think that it has more to do with just doing what we do better, or being kinder. Building an effective service culture certainly is part of that. When you have a good service experience, building our academics even more effectively, that's really important. So that when we talked about that social, cultural, and academic aspect of how we build our campus, those are the 3 things that I believe hold a student to a campus. And if you have those 3 things there and they can connect in those 3 ways, they are going to bond with that campus. But I think it's also something about building a campus that becomes the university of choice for students. That it is not a safety school, it is a university of choice. And when you have a university of choice, a student comes to you already bound. That's what we want to create.
Time for one more question.
Nancy, I'll ask one since there's an overlapping theme, and I've seen it in several. The fine arts, because we talked about there why the fine arts. I love Bach's comments about digital media, perception of a great program, only bluegrass program, only storytelling program, these things. And so here again in the culture and outreach, you mentioned what were the discussions around the fine arts as you see in the culture and outreach, what it can do. In other words, we have these perceptions of these programs being very high quality, but that may or may not be the sum of the total. And I love the way that was worded, so I just wanted the thoughts your committee gave to the fine arts.
Well, I think that if there was probably an expansion of thought, and it may not have even been, because I'm not hearing the specific comments you're talking about, but certainly talking with Dr. Bach about this on a number of occasions. I think that for our group, it was just to be sure, when I use that term, world-class Performing Arts Center, their idea was just don't build it too small. Don't make it just a place to go to see a theater performance. But this is a place that becomes, for the visual arts, significant to this community. It becomes part of a gateway to the community, that where you are providing an opportunity not only for local artists perhaps to to share visually their work, but to expand that to include the history of this region and have an opportunity for things like our train museum, the Natural History Museum, other types of things to have part of that home, so that when visitors come to our region, it becomes really a gateway location, that they see that art center as a place that really is representative of this whole region. There was also a lot of conversation about the importance of not just confining what we're doing with the arts to that Performing Arts Center, but that we need to work on that outreach to other areas of the community and taking our performing arts out into the region and not just using them here locally. There was quite a bit more in the report about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.